Episode 1339 of the FDH Lounge is brought to you by Sportsology, delivering unconventional columns and webcasts about sports, TV, music, movies, and more. Follow them on the web at sportsology.com.
The FDH Lounge. You'll want to schedule your life around it.
A long time ago, on a gloomy, wet Cleveland spring night, two men stand alone amidst the late-night drizzle. Their voices echo across the vacant station parking lot as they debate the merits of the great American radio show that have been missing for far too long. On that night, an idea was born. That idea became the FDH Lounge. Welcome to the FDH Lounge.
Night 2, speaking of the women's division.
Whoa.
Yeah. What?
You forgot a match.
What did I forget? I'm looking at all of these ones.
You forgot the women's tag team turmoil match.
I mentioned it. I mentioned it very briefly in passing previously, Jake. Very briefly, as it deserved. So.
Oh no! I completely disagree with you, my good friend.
Okay.
I respectfully disagree with you.
Okay.
I believe this is an opportunity to create a WrestleMania moment. Because one of the things that we talked about off the air was what is Bayley doing. So going into this, the one you looked over with we have a tag team turmoil match.
Yeah.
Where the winners of the tag team turmoil match go on to night number 2.
Yeah.
To face Shayna Baszler and
Nia Jax.
Lana, Naomi, Dana Brooke, Mandy Rose, the Riot Squad, Natalya, and Tamina. They're going to announce tomorrow night on SmackDown that is going to be the 5th team in there is going to be Carmella and Billie Kay.
Okay.
Now, what I foresee happening at WrestleMania for this is they come out, whoever they're going to be the 5th team in or whatever, and they're going to be ready to walk into the ring, and before Billie Kay can even get to go out, they'll do like a backstage bit or whatever. She'll be like, Carmella's going to look at, actually come out on the stage, and Carmella's going to have the microphone and go, you know what, actually, I found someone better, and it's going to be Bayley.
Okay.
To take her place. So Bayley and Carmella enter, and then finally there's a surprise mystery team, and the Iconics music plays, and out comes Peyton Royce, and you know that crowd would go nuts for it.
Okay.
And going in for it, I don't know if I would have the Iconics be the winners of the match per se. Probably I would have Bayley and Carmella win, just to get Bayley on for night number 2.
Okay.
Or you could even, so that's just my fantasy booking, and it's one of those moments because the crowd has been like, why'd you break up the Iconics? That was stupid. They were so over. They were like one of the best things on the show. You just split them up, and they haven't done anything with them. So you might as well put them back together and see what you got.
Well, as somebody who referred to them at the time as the Colonics, I could care less if I ever see them tag up again here.
Tell us how you really feel, Rick Morris. Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, they to me are throwbacks to when there was a worse time in this tag team division, and again,
God.
Exactly.
Oh God.
The 2000s.
That's what's going to happen.
What?
Forget the Iconics. No, that's what's going to happen. The mystery team's going to be, you can look, but you can't.
Oh, dear God, no. Oh, dear God, make it stop. The Bellas, yeah.
And then if they're in it, they're going to win it.
Yeah. And listen, Jake, is it the most WWE thing ever that the Bellas
Did we just will this into existence?
Oh, God, I hope not. I'm going to blame you if it happens. Jake,
You're welcome.
Answer me this, Jake. Is it the most WWE thing ever that the Bellas are in their Hall of Fame before Daniel Bryan? I mean, that sums up the whole company, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anybody?
Yeah. Did you see the Bellas speech?
I didn't.
Oh, God, it was fantastic. They basically put themselves over as being like the originators of the women's revolution and being at the forefront.
Oh, God.
Stuff. And I'm like, man, I was texting my wrestling tag group and being like, man, I forgot all the greatest gifts in the history of women's professional wrestling, the Bellas. Like, did you know women's wrestling didn't exist before them?
I'd literally rather watch Bertie Danielson scrawl on the wall with crayons for 2 hours before listen to 5 minutes of a Bella speech. So, no, I didn't catch any of it, and my life is all the richer for the fact that I didn't. So, night 2.
However, it did have the great line in there of, Big Johnny's our dad.
Yeah, that.
Life is weird.
Life is very weird. Although they both have a relatively milfy mom, so thumbs up to Big Johnny there. He did well on that one, I suppose, for a man of his. life experience.
You talk about one of the world's greatest overachievers in life, John Laurinaitis.
Yes.
Man, no one did so much. No one has done so much with so little.
Exactly. I mean, he wasn't the brother that got to be part of the Road Warriors, but dare I say, he got to have a relatively decent stink finger in his late to middle age. So there you go. I mean, and again, there's no way to transfer from what I just said there in very poor taste back to a women's tag team title match. But whatever happens there. I seriously couldn't care less. This entire division stinks. This tag division. I guess that's my way of transferring it back somehow to wrestling. The next match here, talk about thrown together. Don't call him Matt Riddle, the United States champion, a guy who they beat like a rug for months, only to have him back into the title in a three-way match to take it from Lashley against Sheamus. This is a match where theoretically they're going to use Sheamus, I guess, to help rebuild Riddle. My guess is Riddle goes over here. And I'm a big fan of his when they're not having him do the worst of his lowest common denominator stoner humor, the worst of RVD circa 2000 whatever. But again, so they're doing their best to dumb Matt Riddle down into a cliche day by day. But I don't think this match will be very good at all, even though it should be pretty decent with the two of these guys. But my guess is Riddle goes over to the extent that I care.
This one, I agree with you that I think also that Matt Riddle is going to go over on this one.
Mm-hmm.
So, fun little sidebar story on this. So, I am still Facebook friends with Matt Riddle going back to like MMA days.
Oh, okay.
Like, I don't know, like 10 years ago. So, he named the United. He takes pictures like every day and posts them with the United States title, like just doing random things, like like hanging out by his pool or going grocery shopping, and he named it Travis. So it's like, yeah, just hanging out with Travis. And I'm like, what is this dude? Like, all right, I agree with you. This has the potential to be a really, really good, hard hitting, like, dare I say, like the not MMA style, but like a fight, like Lashley v. McIntyre should be.
Right.
I just don't think it's going to be given the amount of time that's necessary for it. And I think they're just going to because they always have something that's going to be really, really short on the card. I don't think that's going to be this one, but I think, maybe 6 minutes, if that, and kind of get in there and let him do a couple of their big moves and boom, maybe duck a brogue kick, whatever his Bo Derek is, call it a day, thanks, bye.
Well, you know what? Much like the scenario you described before with the Bellas, you can blame me if I end up manifesting this into existence, but Vince loves to recycle his worst crap. What if it's Sheamus in 18 seconds?
Well, that would be fun. You know what I was actually thinking about this? When I was trying to think of ideas of what before they made the main event a triple threat match, and I was like, what could you do with Daniel Bryan? I'm like, hey, maybe you could finally have that match with Sheamus.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
He was supposed to have it, 4 times and never did.
Yeah, that would be the
one
greatest in-joke ever.
Once got bumped to the pre-show, once was 8 seconds or 18 seconds or whatever it was. Once he ended up getting it to put the main event instead.
Yeah, that is kind of funny. Getting that opportunity there, if you want to call it that, that would be kind of funny. We joked before about the repetitiveness of Owens and Zayn fight forever. This Logan Paul douche is going to be there for whatever that's worth. That'll get them some mainstream rub as far as they're concerned. I will say this.
Will it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's enough losers who follow this guy.
There can't be. I mean, I don't know. Is there literally a person out there going, I'm going to watch WrestleMania now because Logan Paul's on it?
I mean, look, look at all the loser followers the guy's got, right? I mean, it's got to carry some kind of stroke. I will say this. I mean, for as thrown together as it is, I mean, Sami Zayn's whole conspiracy theorist thing, this is one of the greatest gimmicks in wrestling today. I mean, I
love it.
It's entertaining as hell. And, the funniest thing is that, I mean, by all accounts, the annoying aspects of his personality are just an amplification, I guess, of what people people have found around him for years. I know nothing about the guy personally, so I can't attest to this. But, if it's a whole thing of his personality turned up to 10, by the way, Jake, that would be a great example of why WWE these days sucks. Because that's what they used to do. It used to be you take the guy, you turn his personality up to 10, and there you go. The fact that they're doing it apparently with Sami Zayn, and it's one of the only things that's connecting to any degree, is why they suck. Because they don't do it with more of these guys.
Yeah, they definitely tapped into something with him, and because everybody said for years that he's an annoying person,
yeah,
and whatnot. And basically, Kevin Owens has been considered like a saint for being the only one who could really put up with Sami for this long amount of time. And it's kind of sad that they didn't have anything better for either one of these guys to do.
Right.
It's like it just feels like you're on a treadmill. Like you're not in any different of a spot than you were a couple of years ago when they were teaming up together against Shane and Daniel Bryan. And if anything, they're actually a step down, dare I say, from where they were back then.
I mean, here's the thing. I'll say this though, and this is something that they got going for them. And I'm not comparing either one of them to the Rock and Stone Cold, as great as I think both of these guys are, and I'm big fans of both of these guys. But it's like, as far as an enduring dynamic, the fact that we get to see the flipped dynamic, we saw Rock versus Austin with each of them at various times in the roles of face and heel. We're seeing Owens in the role of face against heel Zayn, which we never saw in WWE or in Ring of Honor previously with the whole El Generico thing.
True.
There's at least the novelty of it, and it's like the purest part of me that looks at guys with the classic rivalries over time. You want to see where in the rivalries where they could be flipped in the roles. And so this is a thing where I feel like it checks off a box in their careers that's unique, because they've had a rivalry that's been presented now in two completely different ways.
I mean, their rivalry has to be in the conversation for one of the greatest rivalries in all pro wrestling.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's been from its beginnings to what's happening all the way up to, they're having a WrestleMania match, and, they've been able to adapt, and each one can play either role. I think they're cast perfectly now with Kevin Owens as that, kind of like the wannabe Stone Cold.
Yeah.
Kind of the French-Canadian Stone Cold,
right.
The PG French-Canadian Stone Cold.
Right.
Just feel like, whatever, prize fighter, he's got a family, and Sami, I love the whole documentary gimmick. Now, you know how this has to end, right? This has to end with, he's proven right. Like, he gets footage, he has to be proven right.
Right.
Because the whole idea of the bad guy, has to be like, and at the end of it, it's Vince in his office, and he's like, no, we can't let him win. No, he's terrible. No, we just need to make sure he doesn't win. And all the stuff that he played, everyone's like, oh, bullshit. Vince actually did it, and at the end of it, Vince just looks at him and goes, what are you going to do?
That would be...
It's like, damn it. Like, he's proven right, but at the end of it doesn't mean nothing happens. It's just like, are you going to leave?
Well,
no. And then it kind of goes along with this whole, they're against him character. And he knows that they're against him now. And it's just like, what the hell?
That would be amazing. It absolutely would be. By the way, let's amplify, because I feel like we actually made a pretty transcendent point here that we weren't even expecting to make. Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, okay? Owens has been a guy who's been on the verge of the main event a couple times in this company, but Sami Zayn has never even sniffed that. So, greatest non-main event feud in history? Because we're ruling out Rhodes Flair, Hogan Savage, Austin Rock. You're taking all the main event feuds out of it. As far as feuds that weren't main event feuds, and even Lawler Dundee was a main event feud in its territory. I don't want to say mid-card, because mid-card is too harsh. Let's call it upper mid-card. Greatest upper mid-card feud ever. This is at least on a short list, Jake Digman. I stumped you, bro. This is awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it is definitely up there.
Yeah.
As far as as their overall body of work. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It is one of the one of the most formidable rivalries, dare I say.
Yeah.
Throughout the course of and in fact it has told so many different chapters and different iterations and stories and whatnot that have been weaved in and out along the way. That it's I put that up there. I think of Dreamer Raven.
Yeah. Oh, good one. Yeah. Because that was rarely. I guess when Raven was champ, it could have been a main event feud. And I know all the ROH fans are going to say this was a main event feud in ROH, but and I guess it was in NXT. But by and large, in the Raw and SmackDown prism, this has never been a main event feud, and it's not now. So it definitely, as it's not, let's just say it's not a slam dunk main event feud. And when you're looking at non-slam dunk main event feuds prolonged over a period of time, got to be one of the greatest ever. We'll hand it to him for getting it on the card in this sense. The next one, having said that, outside of Apollo Cruz's fake Nigerian accent, which is awesome in all the wrong kind of ways of being hilarious, Big E v Apollo Cruz in a Nigerian drum fight for the Intercontinental title, which Apollo Cruz, I believe in his bad Nigerian accent, just said it was something like, "I will beat you like a drum like we have in Nigeria." I guess that's how it came to be, so I don't know. It feels like it's going to be some kind of a gimmick so you can get the title onto Cruz. This is a carryover match from the previous PPV, if you want to even call them PPVs anymore since they're just on Peacock. But, I mean, they don't normally carry over even the mid-card matches from the previous month, but they did in this instance, and it's just a rematch. To have Big E go over again feels like it'd be repetitive. It feels like they're trying to build this new Apollo Crews character, which, I mean, I'm in favor of. At least it's something different. At least you're doing something with the guy, and I've considered him to be wasted goods from day one on the main roster here. Maybe this is how you can finally get, something out of Apollo Crews like I thought you could have from day one. And it's not like Big E needs this one here. You can always microwave him, put him in the title scene with Roman Reigns anytime you want to.
Oh, ye Rick Morris, ye have such faith for things of which could happen. Unfortunately, as great as that sounds, it will not, my friend. The whole idea, from what I understand, is sort of the Nigerian drum battle, which is basically just another name for street fight.
Yeah.
No disqualification, anything goes. This one, first of all, we have to remember that the Big E's entrance is being performed live by Wale. So you don't usually bring in on the lower card, the musical acts or people who are going to do the JOB that night.
Okay.
Also, with it being a no disqualification match, and with Kofi and Xavier being free from the night before, since they were wrestled the night before, so they're not doing anything. I see this being a spot and a moment for a New Day reunion. Big E retains the Intercontinental Championship. I don't know. Apollo Crews could have somebody come help him. I don't know who it is. It could be whatever henchman. I don't know. But they'll find a reason to have the New Day come out there, and it'll end with Wale and the New Day celebrating with Big E, and they'll be one of those like, "Hey, look, WrestleMania moment."
Well, all I know is I assume there's going to be some drums out there, even if it's only for decorative purposes, maybe some drumsticks. If we don't get a timpani spot on somebody's nutsack, then what are we even doing here, Jake Digman? What's the point if you don't? You have to have that, don't you? I mean, I would laugh. I'm not a very mature individual, but I would laugh if that happened. So you have that going on. Remember that I said night two, that there were two matches, I thought, that were either main event or semi-main event caliber. We're down to three at this point. So you must be thinking, based on the star power as WWE sees it, that one of these would be the blow-off, apparently, of this plain wrestling match between The Fiend and Randy Orton. But no, we're talking about this one next, so that's not one of the two. This is, again, for a match that would have been made for a cinematic type of deal. I mean, they've done that before with these two to varying degrees and with varying amounts of quote-unquote success. They had one of the worst WWE Championship matches in the history of WrestleMania, bugs crawling on the screen a couple of years back. I think it was at Mania 33. The same feud that had Randy Orton posing next to a tree when there was a shack on fire. I just remember that image for some reason and laughing about that with you. That happened. And again, as much as the male fan in us has, I'm sure, great degrees of appreciation, shall we say. Is that the tasteful way of putting it for what they're doing with Alexa Bliss these days? That's as tasteful as I can be in describing that. But anyways, what else is there to say about this? I mean, this is modern WWE in a nutshell. Everything they're doing with this, and it's one of the reasons, quite frankly, people crap on the promotion as much as they do these days, because they're missing the mark with everybody. You're not even hooking the kids' audience for something this lame.
Well, an interesting take, Rick, earlier on when you were talking about how much you appreciated my girlfriend's taste on wrestling. This is the match that her and myself are also looking forward to a lot seeing is the Fiend v
Okay.
He's just going to squash him, and Randy's going to go on vacation, as he should, because he's worked his ass off during the entire pandemic era.
I was going to say stale AF, but that's just me.
Yeah, so he's like, whatever. But like, he needs to go away.
Yes.
So I see this as I see this as being the reason for him to go away. Very similar to the Finn Balor squashing that took place at SummerSlam when the Fiend first showed up.
Okay.
Just reinvent him, have him take Orton out, and with entrances and hype video, I don't know, 15 minutes, get out and done.
Hey, listen, I'm a man that can be bribed. If this thing ends in 30 seconds, I'll give it 4 stars. That's my bribe offer for them here. I just get this off my screen. I don't care. If you want to get a little bit of twerking from Demon Alexa Bliss at the end for the sake of the male audience, good on you. But that's about all that I would have to say about that. It's such a, when you talk about the wasted potential of modern WWE, the fact that we're down to 2 matches, and I consider one of these 2 to be worthy of at least a semi-main event spot, and realistically probably no higher than that. And there's been no build to it. But Asuka v. Rhea Ripley, this should be awesome. You look at the 2 of them and what they can bring to this. And this is one where, much like Bianca Belair on night 1, because again, and I was kind of arguing with a few friends a little bit who thought that it was such a great thing Bianca Belair won the Royal Rumble. And my thing was, yeah, but it was such a crime what was done to Rhea Ripley last year and the way she fell off the face of the earth immediately thereafter. Giving her a redemption moment here. And again, Asuka at this point, I mean, she's gotten more over as a babyface than I think we really could have thought. And she's finally recovered from being beaten by Charlotte many years ago at WrestleMania because she fell off the face of the earth, had to turn heel to get her heat back. She's got heat, even though they take her for granted. They never use her. They know they can just trot her out whenever they need her. But it's a match that really should be awesome. It should be a great slobber knocker. We were talking about this last year, Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair. I thought it was the best match on the card. And it was a thing where, and we were talking about, some of the all-time guys like Walter and Vader. What if you had those 2 in there? I mean, Asuka's not as tall as Charlotte. She doesn't have quite the same leverage, but she's still kind of a powerhouse in her own right. Rhea's a definite powerhouse. This should be one where, again, they just beat the piss out of each other. And I think it has a chance to be the best match of Mania weekend, just like Rhea and Charlotte was, in my estimation, a year ago.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, I mean, Rhea has to win, right?
She has to.
You have to. And, and then immediately you have Charlotte Flair come back tomorrow night to Monday Night Raw the night after. And you've already got your built-in program ready to go. Yeah. And somebody else who also deserves to take a little vacation is Asuka, who has also worked her ass off during the entire pandemic era. Yeah,
and there's possibly, like, whenever they do a draft again, maybe Asuka next time can move to SmackDown, and you can kind of vary her opposition there a little bit. But Rhea and Charlotte, and again, it's funny too that Charlotte is. Maybe she is starting to somewhat get to the point because, again, supposedly there's been some Hollywood interest. I don't know. We would not yet consider her to be a part-timer, but she was off for an awful long period of time, came back, is off again due to a COVID scare, and then allegedly, depending on who you believe, a pregnancy scare as well, potentially here. I really thought they were going to shoehorn her into this and make it a 3-way match, and quite frankly, that would have been pretty awesome if they had, especially if Rhea was still going over, because then there would be a lot of history, because it's both Asuka and Rhea that had lost to, help keep Charlotte strong, at past WrestleManias here. There would have been a lot of history in that whole thing if it was a 3-way match. But, Rhea as champion, hopefully defending against Charlotte for at least a period of time before Charlotte inevitably gets the belt back. Yes, there's a lot of things they can do, and this is a thing where, and this is, I think Vince takes for granted that people could always be rehabilitated later on. Not everybody can, but the great talents can. And Rhea Ripley can definitely be rehabilitated for what they did with her a year ago if she wins at Mania and has a good reign after that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because she showed up at WrestleMania last year, and then all of a sudden, it was really weird. She went back to NXT, and all of a sudden, they were booking her oh, hey, she's leaving, so she's putting over, the new stars on her way out.
Right.
But then she just kept doing it. And it was that's not good. Why are you doing that? Now it's I couldn't think of a better way to debut her. You should walk out and just goes, I want to face you at WrestleMania. And I was just all right.
Yeah.
I had before before that happened, and the whole thing was Charlotte Flair, which I also heard something about that on various podcasts, and they were talking about. They mentioned like somebody said that Andrade said that the WWE told Charlotte Flair she was pregnant.
Yeah.
I was like, what? It's like, no, I'm not. Yeah, you are. No, I'm not. Yeah, you are. Like, I think I would know.
Notice the one thing Andrade wasn't saying, and that was, why, that's impossible. Why, we never. I distinctly didn't hear that from the man. But anyways, no.
Talk about another overachiever.
Yeah, exactly. We're both talking about her pulling Andrade, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. But anyways, as far as Rhea, I think, didn't she have a visa issue or something right after WrestleMania last year? So she wasn't even right in the mix right away. She was out of it, and part of it was, I think it was a mixture of a visa issue and the pandemic. So she was off the radar. Yeah. Then she came back, and it was an underwhelming return. And it was just dog crap. It's shameful what they did with one of their best talents over the last year. And by the way, too, they always count on us having the shortest memories, and for good reason, because only people like me and you remember things like this. We should remember this next year at Royal Rumble time, when it becomes a thing of like, you gotta win this match if you want to wrestle for a women's title at WrestleMania. Rhea strolled out 2 weeks before Mania, challenged Asuka, got a yes, and that was that, because they had nobody else, okay? So don't believe the hype next January, okay? Because you can always get a shot later on, basically for no reason whatsoever. So even with no build, this is one of the biggest matches.
Half the time, the person you think is going to win doesn't win, just so somebody else can win, so then they can have the person you thought was going to win.
Exactly. Exactly. Because Swerve. I swear to God, Vince Russo isn't dead, but it's like the ghost of Vince Russo was working there half the time. So again, that to me,
bro.
Yeah, bro. That to me.
He goes, bro.
Exactly. That's the semi-main event match to me, is Asuka and Rhea Ripley. Few, if any, might agree with me on that, but that's how I see it. So to me, the undeniable main event of night 2 is going to be the guy who has devoted his entire thing now to a dinner gimmick. He's the head of the table. Roman Reigns is the guy sitting at the head of the table. That's his entire gimmick now. Versus Edge versus Daniel Bryan, triple threat for the Universal Championship. And again, the subtext to this, which doesn't really get talked about much in the programming, is the whole real life thing here. 3 guys who had either health threatening or in some cases life threatening issues that caused them to go away. For Roman Reigns, it was life threatening in terms of recurrence of leukemia. For Edge and Daniel Bryan, physical health in terms of spinal stenosis and concussions, respectively, in their cases. And again, there could perhaps be legitimate questions as to how suited they are to even be in there in a day and age where AEW has come along and provided competition in terms of a willingness to sign guys like they just did with Christian Cage, which, by the way, and I love Christian Cage and I'm glad to see him back out there. I just hope it doesn't prove to be a bad decision for him as well. But anyways, let's just assume for the sake of argument these 3 are not taking years off their life being in this match. And it should be a really good one. There should be a lot of really excellent spots. And there's a school of thought that you have Roman Reigns take this, go all the way through champ match versus The Rock next year. I think you've said on the show previously you don't think that the match needs the belt, and you're right. That's a match that's bigger than the belt. But a sense of... I get the sense that they haven't built anybody big enough necessarily to take the title off him. Not to say that they won't, but the build-up for Edge has been kind of weak. That's why they had to bring Daniel Bryan in. Daniel Bryan's already come up short previously a couple times here for the belt. So, I mean, had they done a solid, consistent build-up, say, for example, with Big E, like a couple people thought they might do, you could be like, okay, Big E he's building up to this moment, he's peaking, this is going to be the moment. My guess is in the end, it's going to be Edge getting his hand raised, because I think they're going to want the happy ending at the end of the night. It'll be a short-lived reign, no pun intended, because they're going to want it back on Roman. But I get the sense it's going to be flatter than it could have been, because I don't think they built Edge the way they should have coming into this thing here. And the fact that he's now solidly in the tweener role with pure babyface Daniel Bryan being in there, I don't know. I think the match is going to be better than whatever the outcome is, if that makes any sense.
That does make sense. I actually am going to disagree with you on this one. I actually see them going with the Daniel Bryan route and him winning the championship, foregoing the fact that he already won the championship and went like to become one of the most awesome versions of the new Daniel Bryan ever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like the redemption story arc, and I think that he can. And you have a built-in reason at the next pay-per-view where you can do Edge versus Daniel Bryan, and it gives Roman also again the theme you're going to see with me here on this one. Also a chance to take a little bit of time off and go home and not be on TV.
Well,
and then not be on TV for a little bit, and you got to keep the act up. The only thing is that he would have to pin Edge because I don't see them taking the belt off of. I don't see Roman being the one to go down unless it's like a super Herculean tag team effort or something like that.
You know what's hilarious is the common denominator in this is Paul Heyman. A Paul Heyman guy is not in a three-way match going to take the fall at a Mania. You go back to 2015 here. Roman Reigns had to take the fall when Seth Rollins got inserted so they could get the belt off of Brock without him doing the JOB on the PPV. I agree with you. I don't think Roman Reigns is laying down for either guy. I think that's going to add some heat later on to you never beat me.
Exactly. Adding heat to the idea that you got to think that the payoff of this is going to be The Rock versus Roman.
You do.
The head of the table, whatever that is. I think the winner gets laid by their uncles. It's a Samoan thing. It's a Samoan thing. It's a cultural thing.
I was going to say, I hope you mean the way that gets put around the neck as opposed to the other kind, because that could be kind of gross. But,
where does your mind go, Rick Morris? That is disgusting.
The same place most people.
Kyle Ross would be so disappointed in you.
First of all, no, he wouldn't. That's his exact sense of humor. Number two, the same place everybody's mind goes when you use the phrase "get laid." Our minds all go in that same direction, comedic or otherwise. And
they're the ones who did it on pay-per-view.
Yeah.
I'm making this up. They're putting the lei around his neck. Ceremonial is the head of the table, and I'm like, all right. So that has to be the payoff at the end of this. If he beats The Rock shows him respect, and they're like, yeah, we like you now, and you get it. Or let's be real, The Rock just whoops his ass.
Yeah, I haven't seen such compelling WWE cultural sensitivity since Tatanka showed up for a vignette on a reservation one time in full wrestling gear. But as far as this goes here, I think, but by the way, I think it was the Brian and Vinny show that revisited that I was checking out recently. So props to them for making fun of that in the way that it deserved to be made fun of. But this is a match where I guess I should probably bring this full circle by saying this, and because I've crapped on this enough. Look, if Daniel Bryan wins and is champion and gets any kind of chance to do anything, then I will have to eat my words a little bit because he's just about my favorite wrestler of today. I think he is on a very, very short list of the greatest wrestlers of the 21st century. You mentioned AJ Styles before. He'd be on the list. Daniel Bryan has to be on the list. And here's the thing, too. Daniel Bryan is a guy who deserves to be mentioned with Chris Jericho. We've come to regard Chris Jericho as, out of all the wrestlers of today and maybe even throughout history, the greatest reinventor of all time. Daniel Bryan, with all of his incarnations from the American Dragon to the Yes Man to Champion of the Planet to everything, versus this is more of a kind of low-key, I just love wrestling, babyface Daniel Bryan. White meat, but it works. I mean, Daniel Bryan could make anything work, even white meat. Daniel Bryan's a guy that we never thought could have been booed at the height of the Yes movement, and he got the piss booed out of him in the middle of Kofi Mania at WrestleMania 2 years ago. Daniel Bryan can do anything. So if we're going to give props to Chris Jericho for all of this, as we should remember Daniel Bryan when it's all said and done as being on the same level for reinvention. The man just keeps finding new ways to make it happen and get over.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. As far as the comparison for the two, I'm pretty sure that their political donations are different, but that's for another show for another time.
Diametrically.
Yes, but it is. So is that fair to say we've persuaded you onto the Daniel Bryan going over scenario?
Yeah, you know what? I'll co-sign on that. I still think it's more likely to be Edge, but I want to hold out hope that it could be Daniel Bryan. And here's the thing, too. And this is, Daniel Bryan did something that I don't... Chris Jericho on many occasions has put his ego aside. So I don't want to say he wouldn't do this, but one of Daniel Bryan's incarnations on the Indies to get heat as a heel. Do you remember the nickname that he got for his one finishing maneuver on the Indies?
Mr. Small Package.
Yes. Would Chris Jericho ever call himself Mr. Small Package?
Oh, he told some great stories on that. Like, it's actually, I think, it was one of the Daniel Bryan, I mean, it was one of the SummerSlam match, I think, with Miz or something. Now, it was the match with Miz. He beat him with a small package.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, you can't win with a small package. What? No, that's no. And he's just like, yeah. And he's like, you know, and he's like, yeah, for a long time I was Mr. He goes, I was trying to get it over. Mr. Small Package.
I mean,
like, that's so good.
If you ever want to find an example of a wrestler's t-shirt that I might laugh at but would never wear, that would be it. I wouldn't want to walk through a mall wearing a Mr. Small Package t-shirt.
But it's pretty funny.
It is funny.
And I don't know. You know, I think when I think of Daniel Bryan, go back to Bryan Daniels. I think back in the days of the old Sunday Night Submission Day, and one time I was running the boards for the boys, and he was on the show.
Yeah, that was incredible.
Ring of Honor was coming to Cleveland. I don't know if you remember that. Like, Ring of Honor was coming to Cleveland. You might have actually been there.
Yes. Survival of the Fittest 06. I was at that. It was awesome.
Yeah. And Bryan Danielson was coming on the show, and I'm like, hello, and I'm like, I call him, and I'm like, hey, so you listen? He goes, no, I don't have the internet. I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, I don't have the internet. I'm like, oh, okay. And then he just baffled me in 2000 and what was that?
6. That was 6. Yeah.
That he didn't have internet, and I'm like, no. And he goes, he's like, do you want to call me back or should I call you back? I'm like, I can call. Hang on. They're gonna go to a break, so call me back in like 2 minutes, and I'll put you on over the commercial break. He's like, okay, cool. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, bye. And then calls back like in like 4 minutes or whatever. And then I saw the thing. It's like, hello, hi, this is Brian. I'm supposed to do a radio interview for somebody or something. Like, yeah, let me put you through. And I'm like, dude, that was like Bryan Daniels in the American Dream. My life is weird.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and just doing this whole thing where it's like, you know, having, that was a pretty fun exchange. It's interesting to see, without giving too much away, where several people from all parts of that night went on to go be and go.
Yeah, absolutely. And
one of them is main eventing WrestleMania tomorrow.
Oh, that's right.
Tomorrow, depending when you're listening to this.
That's right. And I will say this, that it's a thing where the ROH shows back then, so I think there was maybe more than one show that a couple of us were at, so I don't remember which one, but if you go back to FDH Lounge mini episode, either 22 or 23, it's somewhere in there. There's an entire mini episode that is nothing but me recapping to Kyle Ross the story of you getting kayfabe by Jimmy Jacobs at the ROH show, us poking fun at you relentlessly, and then freaking out that yuppie couple in the elevator that they were going to some Playhouse Square event, and we're laughing and screaming about this thing, and you're defending yourself passionately that you weren't kayfabed, and this yuppie couple is just looking like they would eat through the wall to get away from us. I mean, I'm not doing justice to the story. Check out the story in its entirety, people. That's one of the greatest friggin' things of all time.
Yes, check this out. Because the best part is when we were like, when the doors opened, all three of us just like busted out laughing.
Yeah.
Like, I remember that. We all just busted out like, oh my god. Like, what? Like, yeah, you're like, did you like, yeah, that was fun.
And the other thing.
I got bored. I didn't know what his gimmick was.
Well, and the semi-main event to the story, if you will, fittingly enough, is when you were outside getting kayfabe by Jimmy Jacobs, I was in there regaling Kyle, and he didn't, obviously, because of state of mind that night, shall we say, that's a good euphemism, he didn't happen to remember this, so he was reacting to it with such laughter as though he was hearing it for the first time. I was telling him my idea for an Aftermag headline for a feud that I proposed where JBL would come out and attack Muhammad Hussein, and the cover would read on Pro Wrestling Illustrated, APA, always protecting America, how Muhammad Hussein awakened the APA and JBL.
That is so horrible. I love it.
But you know what?
That is the exact thing. I could see that on the cover of, like, Inside Wrestling.
Yeah, or the Wrestler. Yes, maybe not the fine caliber of Pro Wrestling Illustrated, but one of the two lesser ones might have had that.
But one of the dirt bags.
Yeah.
Like, why Nikita Koloff is going to face Hulk Hogan, and what you need to know.
I cry for Magnum TA. I still remember my friends in school quoting that mockingly. I cry for Magnum TA. And then one of my friends was like, he's turned into such a pansy, they should just have him come out to the Elton John Nikita music. I'm like, that would be funny, actually.
So, to bring it back,
yes,
to
somewhat.
WrestleMania,
Yes.
somewhat back to WrestleMania here. So here's an idea too that I've heard milled about. The idea before was made a three-way, and you mentioned Edge going over,
Yes.
and that he gets rid of the Universal title, and he gets back the World Heavyweight, brings back the World Heavyweight title that he never lost.
Interesting.
And it gives him a reason to get rid of the Universal title, which is stupid.
Here's the thing, though, and
so dumb.
I agree.
But then it's like, okay, but then we're back to square one again. So it's like, okay.
But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing, Jake, is for them, it's all about marketing, selling belts. Is bringing back the big gold belt enough of a novelty that they're going to sell more of those versus the belts they sell now? I just don't see it.
I don't know. I don't see a lot of the big gold belts around when I'm doing my shopping. But I do see a heck of a lot. Man, if you want to buy an AEW toy belt, those things are everywhere.
Yeah,
well, you can find them in every aisle or everywhere, and so does a lot of the SmackDown Tag Team Championships are everywhere. Like, there's so many. Like, what kids like? I want to be the tag team champion. Like, what?
And I'll tell you what, Jake Digman. I'll tell you what. I'm going to go ahead and put over this purchase here. Even the big gold belt pales in comparison to my purchase. A better version of the big gold belt is the now defunct IWGP Championship. Highly recommend that to anybody out there that wants to get a belt. You got to get it off of Amazon, I guess. But you want to go get one? That's a better version. I have the IWGP, which has now been retired, sadly enough, in favor of the IWGP World Title.
Yeah, and they brought back the Divas title. It's hideous.
It does look like a Divas title. It looks so much worse.
It's horrible.
I have the cool one.
How did you go from the most beautiful belt of all time?
It is a beautiful belt.
Or one of them to the Divas title. At what point did no one look at that and go, dude, that looks like a tramp stamp?
It does. It's on a short list of the best ones. I was going back and forth between that one and the Triple Crown one, and I just decided I got it. The IWGP one was just too badass, and I'm glad I made the call. And I'm sad that my prediction is they'll bring it back at some point. They'll phase out the tramp stamp because that's not going to get over with their hardcore audience. That's an audience where people love wrestling too much. So,
I agree with you.
And on a real show like Wrestle Kingdom next year, we'll see the real belt back here as we talk about WrestleMania and we bring it full circle. So, Jake Digman, a true pleasure to get to break this down with you and what I thought at the outset was going to be a WrestleMania segment that we do, as opposed to what will now end up being our WrestleMania 37 miniseries preview. So, always a pleasure, my friend.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me. And before we go, real quick, what they always like to do that WrestleMania surprise. What do you think the WrestleMania surprise is going to be?
That's a good one. My thought is, you know what? I'm not going to stray too far from what the formula's been. Probably Steve Austin comes out to give somebody a stunner and catches some beers, even though they fired the guy that throws the beers to him. So I guess that's my thought here. Well, what's yours?
Mine is during the Hall of Fame ceremony, and they're all standing on the stage, whatever, when they announce the 2021 class. Because I'm assuming they're going to do 2020.
I know where you're going with this. I know where you're going with this, and this is awesome. Go ahead.
Okay, so when they do the 2021 class, I would have so they have everybody come out on the stage, whatnot, and they're all leaving, blah 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 blah, and then thank you, the class of 2021, and then they all go when they go backstage. All of a sudden, the lights go out and Kane's music hits, and Glenn Jacobs walks in and he just rips off his tux. He's got his wrestling suit on, he puts the mask on, and he walks out. He walks down to the ring, gets into the ring, and does the whole thing with the fire. Fire goes up crazy, blah, 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 blah. And as he's standing in there, all of a sudden, dong, the Undertaker walks out. And if you remember a moment from, like, when Kane first came about, when he was on the stage, and he got down on one knee and he did the salute to the Undertaker. He, like, left Paul Bearer, like, 98.
Right.
So as a callback to that, the Undertaker comes out on stage, and, he can just be in all black, whatever. He doesn't be in full regalia. It's not about him anyway. He comes out and he gets down on one knee and he does the Undertaker salute down to Kane, and Kane looks up and does it back to him. And it's kind of like a callback to the first night they came in.
Okay.
And then he leaves and he tips his hat. He stands up, he tips his hat, he turns, and he walks back.
All right. Well, as for a thing.
What were you thinking?
Well, since that's apropos, you proposed something between the two. Since, as I always look at the picture from that political fundraiser, and I always refer to you as the long lost third brother of destruction, I gotta be honest with you. The idea that I had that I thought you were going to say is actually cooler and funnier, and that is that while Kane is out, it also circles around Kane, that he's out there and he's on stage and he's accepting his moment in the spotlight, that somebody comes out and tries to attack him. Who do you think that would be?
Pete
Rose. And then we get to see him do another tombstone pile driver on Pete Rose on stage. I like my idea better.
Okay. That would be really cool.
Yes.
That's the thing you can do. The thing you can do also, you can actually have him drag him down to the ring too and do it.
Yes.
And just be in the ring, and also once he gets in the ring, and all of a sudden, like, that's when he, just rips off the tuxedo. He has to rip off the tuxedo and become King.
He probably does.
Have a rip off tuxedo, make it look really good. It rips off your wrestling costume underneath it. Boom, done. And then he's King, and everyone's like, yay.
Well,
Kane beat up. We can have the dream match nobody wants, and have Kane and the Undertaker beat up the New World Order.
That would be good, but
we've gone off the rails.
Well, let me go off the rails one more bit here before we end it, and that would be, however this whole segment ends, the last thing he needs to do, particularly if he's in the Kane regalia, that would make it even better, as opposed to the Citizen Kane get up, is if he growls into the camera, "My re-election campaign has started. Donate at donatetokane.org," or whatever the thing is. And if he gets in a fundraising plea, that would be amazing, Jake. I would.
My God, let's go totally weird with it. All right, he does the fire thing.
Yeah.
But instead of his music, he's in the full Kane regalia. It just goes to like his campaign music. And he just like walks around, and just like all of a sudden all these people come out like Glenn Jacobs.
I would.
And he just walk around like, "Hey, everybody, hi, how you doing?" This will never happen. Everybody will be like, "What?"
Jake, I'm about to take this even further into fever dream territory. I feel like we're sort of in can you top this mode. But if Pete Rose is out there attacking him, do you know who I want to see come in and attack Pete Rose and help Kane turn the tide? Depending on how the old guy is feeling at this stage of life, Dr. Ron Paul. I think that's what we need.
We've definitely gone off the rails.
I think we have. You know what?
The last thing anybody needs is for Dr. Ron Paul to be going anywhere near Tampa, Florida.
Probably, yeah. At his age.
Terrible idea.
Yeah.
You don't need him anywhere near there.
Yeah, I think I've hit.
I'm just going to go down there and be like, I got an idea. Let's just open up the doors. Everybody gets free tickets. We're going to fill this place up. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I don't care.
I think we are rapidly.
I had no audience. I don't even need people.
Yeah, we're rapidly hitting the nadir of ideas here at this point. So we've truly given everybody our all on this subject, as we always do. So, Jake Digman, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much for being here for our WrestleMania 37 series, and thank you everybody for tuning in to these mini episodes of the FDH Lounge.